Look at this moment. For generations, this exact scene has been drilled into our minds as the ultimate symbol of eternal love, commitment, and unimaginable wealth. When a man drops to one knee to propose, society dictates that he must present this exact glittering rock. If he doesn't, the commitment is questioned. The love isn't considered real. But what if I told you that the ring on your finger is intrinsically worthless? Scientifically speaking, a diamond is nothing more than pressurized carbon. It is literally made of the exact same base material as the graphite inside a cheap No. 2 pencil, or the filthy lump of coal you throw into a barbecue grill. And despite everything the jewelry industry has told you, diamonds are not rare at all. In fact, they are the most common gemstone found on planet Earth. There are enough diamonds buried underground right now to hand every single human being alive a cup full of them. So how did a common shiny piece of carbon become the foundation of an $80 billion global industry? How did it become so artificially expensive that ordinary people are willing to go into massive credit card debt, spending 2 entire months of their hard-earned salary just to buy a microscopic piece of it? The answer is the greatest psychological heist in the history of modern capitalism. Its value has nothing to do with supply and demand. It wasn't born out of natural scarcity. It was born out of a lie, a brilliantly crafted, ruthlessly enforced, 150-year-old lie orchestrated by one single, shadowy cartel. A company that deliberately hoarded the global supply in hidden vaults, manipulated world governments, struck highly illegal deals with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and completely brainwashed global culture to believe that you cannot buy love unless you buy their rock. This is the untold dark history of De Beers, how a ruthless monopoly took a worthless stone and successfully fooled the entire world. Welcome to Wealth Memoir, and this is the Diamond Lie. To understand the greatest lie ever told, we first have to understand the truth. For centuries, the diamond actually was a rare and mystical object. Before the late 1800s, you couldn't just walk into a brightly lit mall and buy one. They were incredibly scarce, found only by sifting through the muddy riverbeds of India and the remote, dangerous jungles of Brazil. The global supply was so microscopic that only kings, queens, and the absolute highest tier of the aristocracy could ever dream of wearing them. Their extreme price tag was entirely justified. It was tied to genuine geographical scarcity. But in 1869, that genuine scarcity vanished overnight. Deep in the dry, unforgiving landscape of South Africa, near the banks of the Orange River, a young farm boy stumbled upon a massive 83-carat white stone. It was dubbed the Star of South Africa, and it triggered the largest, most chaotic, and most destructive diamond rush the world had ever seen. Within months, tens of thousands of desperate prospectors from across the globe flooded into a dusty mining camp called Kimberley. They tore apart the earth with pickaxes and bare hands, creating the Big Hole, the largest hand-dug excavation in human history. And what they found inside that crater terrified the European elite. The ground was literally glittering. South Africa wasn't just producing a few handfuls of diamonds, it was producing millions of carats. The global market was suddenly drowning in them. British financiers and European investors watched in absolute horror as the market price of diamonds began to freefall. In economics, the law of supply and demand is absolute. If a product becomes abundant, its price crashes. By the 1880s, diamonds were on the verge of becoming just another cheap, semi-precious stone. They were about to become as common as turquoise or amethyst. The illusion of royal exclusivity was hemorrhaging. The investors knew that if the mining didn't stop, the diamond industry would collapse to zero. Enter Cecil Rhodes. Rhodes was an 18-year-old British immigrant who had arrived in South Africa sick with tuberculosis and looking for a fortune. But unlike the thousands of muddy, exhausted men swinging pickaxes in the Kimberley crater, Rhodes was an apex predator. He understood a terrifying truth. The real money wasn't in digging for diamonds, it was in controlling the people who found them. The Kimberley mine constantly flooded with water, so Rhodes used his modest savings to buy a steam-powered water pump. He rented it out to the desperate miners to keep their claims dry. He charged exorbitant fees, and when the miners inevitably went bankrupt from the collapsing diamond prices, Rhodes ruthlessly bought their plots of land for pennies on the dollar. He had a terrifying vision. He realized that the only way to save the diamond from becoming a worthless rock was to create a total, unbreakable monopoly. If one man owned all the mines, that one man could close the tap. He could lock the diamonds in a vault and artificially starve the global market. Backed by the immense, almost limitless wealth of the Rothschild banking family in London, Rhodes aggressively bought out, crushed, or merged with every single rival in South Africa. In 1888, he consolidated his empire into one massive, untouchable corporate entity. He named it De Beers Consolidated Mines. Practically overnight, this single company took control of 90% of the entire global diamond production. The African rush was over. The free market was dead. De Beers didn't just own the diamonds, they owned the illusion of scarcity. But controlling the supply was only the first half of the master plan, because holding a vault full of shiny rocks is completely useless unless you can convince the rest of the world that they desperately need to buy them. Cecil Rhodes had successfully bought up the African mines, but he knew that owning the dirt wasn't enough. Mines eventually run dry. Competitors might find new mines in other countries. To make the illusion of scarcity permanent, De Beers didn't just need to control the African dirt, they needed to control the entire global pipeline. They needed a bottleneck, a single, impenetrable toll booth that every diamond on planet Earth had to pass through before it reached a jewelry store. They created an entity known as the Syndicate. Officially, it was called the Central Selling Organization, or the CSO, and it operated out of a heavily guarded fortress in London. The CSO was a masterclass in corporate extortion. De Beers went to every major diamond miner in the world and offered them a devil's bargain. Sell all of your rough diamonds exclusively to us, and we will guarantee you a steady, artificially high price. But if you try to sell them directly to the public, we will flood the market with our own massive reserves, crash the price to zero, and bankrupt your entire country's mining industry overnight. It was a threat no one could refuse. By the 1920s, under the leadership of a ruthless businessman named Ernest Oppenheimer, the Syndicate had secured a terrifying stranglehold. Almost 90% of the world's rough diamonds were now locked inside the vaults of De Beers in London. But controlling the miners was only half the battle. They also had to control the buyers. And the way De Beers sold these diamonds to jewelers was straight out of a mafia playbook. You couldn't just walk into De Beers and buy diamonds. 10 times a year, De Beers would invite a highly exclusive, hand-picked group of about 100 diamond cutters and jewelers to London. These events were called sights, and the buyers were known as sight holders. It was the ultimate privilege in the jewelry world, but it was also a dictatorship. When a sight holder sat down at the table, a De Beers executive would hand them a small shoebox. Inside were various rough diamonds. Beside the box was a single piece of paper with a price written on it. Let's say $5 million. There was no negotiation. There was no haggling. The rule was brutally simple: take it or leave it. If a buyer complained about the quality of the stones, or if they tried to negotiate the price down by even a single dollar, they were politely asked to leave, and they were never invited back, ever. They were permanently blacklisted from the global diamond trade. Without De Beers, a jeweler had no supply. Their business was instantly dead. Through this system of absolute fear and compliance, De Beers achieved the impossible. They defied the fundamental laws of economics. When the global economy crashed, they didn't lower diamond prices to attract buyers. They simply locked the London vaults and refused to sell anything until the economy recovered. They had successfully engineered the perfect, unbreakable monopoly. But as the 1930s approached, the Syndicate was about to face a catastrophic threat that no vault could protect them from. You can control the supply of diamonds perfectly, but what happens when the world simply stops wanting to buy them?
By the late 1920s, De Beers had built the perfect castle. They controlled the African dirt, they blackmailed the global distribution network, and they hoarded millions of diamonds in their hidden vaults in London. Their monopoly was absolute. But as the 1930s approached, a catastrophic invisible bomb exploded, threatening to destroy the entire empire overnight. It was the Great Depression. America was De Beers' biggest market, but suddenly the roaring 20s were over. American consumers weren't just poor, they were economically traumatized. No one had money for food, let alone for expensive, useless, semi-precious stones. And that's when De Beers realized a terrifying truth about their entire product line. A truth that every billionaire investor tried desperately to ignore. A diamond is intrinsically worthless. It cannot feed you. It cannot power your home. It has zero resale value for the average consumer. A diamond is only valuable because De Beers said it was valuable. And in 1930, the public simply stopped believing them. The Oppenheimer family, who now controlled De Beers, watched in panic as the mountain of diamonds in their vault grew higher and higher, but the number of buyers fell to near zero. Their empire, built on an illusion of scarcity, was sitting on a pile of common, shiny carbon. They realized that they couldn't control the market with fear or force anymore. They needed something much more dangerous. They needed to control the human mind. In 1938, De Beers executives made a desperate pilgrimage to the birthplace of modern advertising, New York City. They walked into the offices of N.W. Ayer & Son, the premier advertising agency of the world. Their demand was simple: make the world want to buy diamonds again. The agency, led by a brilliant but ruthless advertising genius named Gerald Locke, spent months studying the diamond. Their conclusion was a masterpiece of corporate cynicism. They realized that because a diamond had zero function, they couldn't sell its scarcity anymore. They had to sell an emotion. They had to connect the diamond to an unbreakable, universal human feeling that people were terrified of losing. They chose eternal love. De Beers was about to execute the greatest psychological heist in history.
They didn't just want you to buy a diamond. They wanted you to feel that your love was not legitimate unless it was represented by a diamond. The plan was brilliant in its cruelty. They targeted the newly engaged. They marketed the idea that the diamond engagement ring was not just a tradition, it barely existed before this campaign, but a sacred, unbreakable rule of social contract. In 1947, a young copywriter at N.W. Ayer named Francis Jarity was working late trying to write one single sentence that summed up the entire diamond lie. Bored and exhausted, she scrawled 4 words on a piece of paper. A diamond is forever. It is, perhaps, the single most brilliant lie ever written in the history of consumerism. Why was it so brilliant? Forever. It wasn't just a romantic promise, it was a calculated financial directive from De Beers. Do not resell this diamond. De Beers understood that their real enemy wasn't other gemstone companies, it was the used diamond market. If every couple that got divorced, or every family that hit hard times tried to resell their diamonds, the market would be flooded, prices would collapse, everyone would realize how common they are. By defining the diamond as forever, they convinced people that selling a diamond was like selling your own heart. It was taboo. They kept millions of carats trapped on people's fingers, safe from the secondary market, ensuring De Beers could continue controlling the primary supply at an artificially high price. But the brainwashing wasn't complete. In the 1950s, De Beers' agency ran a campaign calculated to extract the maximum profit from the working class. If a man really loved his woman, they said, he must spend 2 months' salary on the diamond engagement ring. This wasn't a social rule. It wasn't a tradition. It was a corporate directive from N.W. Ayer, carefully calculated to be just high enough to maximize profit, but low enough that an average man could still afford it by going into debt. It was a test, and the world passed with flying colors. The heist was complete. Diamonds were worthless, functionally useless rocks, yet they had become the absolute, non-negotiable measurement of a man's worth, a woman's beauty, and the strength of a couple's love. De Beers hadn't just made the world fool for diamonds, they had made a fool out of humanity. The lie was now priceless. But what De Beers didn't realize is that in controlling the entire world, they had created a terrifying new kind of predator that would force them to strike a deal with their greatest enemy. By the 1950s, De Beers had successfully conquered the minds of the American public. The diamond was now officially the ultimate symbol of romance. The London vaults were functioning perfectly, releasing just enough diamonds to keep the illusion of extreme scarcity alive. But thousands of miles away, behind the Iron Curtain, a discovery was made that sent a shockwave of absolute terror through the De Beers boardroom. In the frozen wasteland of Siberia, Soviet geologists stumbled upon one of the largest diamond deposits in human history, the Mir mine. It was a monstrous crater, so large that the air currents above it could literally suck helicopters out of the sky. And it was pumping out millions of carats of diamonds. Suddenly, the Soviet Union was sitting on a stockpile large enough to flood the global market and destroy De Beers overnight. If the Soviets dumped these diamonds on the open market, the carefully crafted scarcity would vanish. The price of diamonds would collapse to pennies. The forever illusion would be shattered. Ideologically, this should have been the end of the empire. De Beers was the ultimate symbol of Western capitalist greed and luxury. The Soviet Union was the ultimate anti-capitalist state, actively fighting a Cold War against the West. They were mortal enemies. The Soviets had every political reason to crush the diamond monopoly and humiliate the capitalist West. But De Beers understood a fundamental truth about empires. Ideology is cheap. Hard currency is expensive. In a move of staggering corporate audacity, De Beers executives secretly reached out to the Soviet government. Behind the backs of the British and American governments, at the absolute height of Cold War paranoia, they brokered a highly illegal, top-secret alliance. The deal was simple. De Beers would buy almost every single diamond the Soviet Union pulled out of the ground. Through a shadowy network of front companies and middlemen in London and Switzerland, De Beers quietly absorbed the massive Russian supply into their own central selling organization. In exchange, the Soviet Union received billions of dollars in hard Western currency, money they desperately needed to fund their military and sustain their communist regime. It was the ultimate hypocrisy. The pinnacle of Western capitalism was secretly funding the communist war machine, and the communist empire was secretly protecting the ultimate capitalist illusion, all to keep the price of a shiny rock artificially high. But the Soviet deal created a new massive problem for De Beers. The Russian mines didn't produce large, flawless engagement stones. They produced millions of very small, low-quality diamonds. De Beers was now hoarding millions of tiny stones that no one wanted to buy. How do you force the public to buy small, cheap diamonds without ruining the prestige of the brand? You invent another lie. De Beers' ad agency went back to the drawing board and invented the Eternity Ring, a ring covered entirely in tiny Russian diamonds. They marketed it to older married couples as a way to rekindle their romance. They didn't just survive the Russian threat, they weaponized it. They turned Soviet oversupply into another mandatory romantic tradition. By the 1980s, De Beers controlled an astonishing 90% of the entire global diamond trade. They were untouchable. But empires built on secrets eventually bleed. And as the 20th century came to a close, the world was about to discover exactly what was paying for these diamonds. And the truth was written in blood.
For over a century, De Beers had successfully marketed the diamond as the ultimate symbol of purity and innocence. But as the late 1990s rolled around, the rise of the global internet and 24-hour news cycles brought a terrifying reality into the living rooms of the American public. The world finally saw what that purity actually cost. In countries like Sierra Leone, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, violent rebel groups had seized control of massive diamond mines. But these warlords didn't care about the De Beers Syndicate or their strict mafia-style rules. They bypassed the London vaults entirely, smuggling millions of rough diamonds directly onto the black market to buy weapons and fund brutal, bloody civil wars. These became known to the world as conflict diamonds, or more chillingly, blood diamonds. It was the ultimate public relations nightmare. The stone of eternal love was suddenly dripping in blood. People were walking into jewelry stores, looking at a $10,000 engagement ring and wondering if that specific stone had paid for a bullet in Africa. De Beers' iron grip on the global supply began to slip. Competitors in Canada and Australia, sensing weakness and wanting to distance themselves from the African conflict, started bypassing the London Syndicate to sell their clean diamonds directly to the market. The untouchable monopoly was fracturing. But the PR disaster of blood diamonds wasn't the fatal blow. The true executioner of the De Beers empire didn't come from a muddy crater in Africa. It came from a sterile white laboratory. For decades, scientists had tried to replicate the intense heat and pressure of the Earth's mantle to create diamonds synthetically. And in the 21st century, they perfected it. Using technologies like chemical vapor deposition, scientists can now take a tiny sliver of a carbon seed, place it inside a microwave plasma reactor, inject it with carbon-rich gases, and literally grow a flawless diamond in a matter of weeks. Let me be absolutely clear, this is not cubic zirconia. It is not fake. A lab-grown diamond is 100% chemically, physically, and optically identical to a mined diamond. It is the exact same crystallized carbon. Even a master jeweler equipped with a magnifying loupe cannot tell the difference, because there is no difference except for one catastrophic detail: scarcity. You can't print gold, you can't print oil, but you can print diamonds. The 150-year-old illusion was finally shattered. Because lab-grown diamonds can be produced infinitely, their prices have plummeted. Today, a flawless lab-grown diamond costs up to 80% less than a mined diamond of the exact same quality. Why would a young modern couple go into massive debt to buy a massive rock pulled out of the dirt by a monopoly when they can buy the exact same conflict-free rock from a lab for a fraction of the price? De Beers panicked. They tried to run smear campaigns calling lab-grown diamonds synthetic or microwave jewelry, but the market didn't care. The spell was broken. Humanity had woken up. The cartel that once controlled the 90% of the world's diamonds has now seen its market share collapse to around 30%. The empire is bleeding out. For 150 years, De Beers orchestrated the most successful, most profitable, and most brilliant marketing campaign in human history. They didn't just sell a rock, they sold an idea. They convinced billions of people that a piece of pressurized carbon found in abundance all over the world was the ultimate, non-negotiable proof of true love. They built an $80 billion empire, not on geographical scarcity, but on human psychology. Today, their absolute monopoly is broken. Lab-grown diamonds have permanently exposed the myth of scarcity, and the bloody history of the African mines has forever stained the illusion of purity. But the legacy of De Beers leaves us with a fascinating, almost terrifying realization about the modern world we live in. The true value of a diamond isn't in the stone itself. It only has value because we all agreed to believe the lie. De Beers might have tricked the world into buying rocks, but they aren't the only ones who built an empire on ruthless tactics and luxury illusions. If you want to see how one man orchestrated the most aggressive, cutthroat corporate takeover in fashion history to become the richest man on Earth, you need to watch this next. Click the video on your screen right now to watch He Stole Louis Vuitton, The Ruthless Rise of Bernard Arnault. I've also left the link right at the top of the pinned comment below. Thank you for watching Wealth Memoir. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.